He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Alex Marlow Show. It's going to be a good one today. We're continuing with a little bit of the interview series. I'm in deep research mode right now, and I really have a lot of cool friends. And you're going to meet a new one for the show. Not new for any of you who know me, but Jon Kahn, our COO of Breitbart News, who's also our Minister of Culture. He keeps an eye on culture for us and the influence of culture on our politics and vice versa. Super fascinating guy, as you will hear, and he's got an amazing new song out, Fingerprints. We'll talk about that as well. But before we do that, I do want to get into the news. Those of you who like to see me pop up places, I was on Laura Ingraham's show on Friday. That's not available online, so I couldn't find it anywhere. Didn't see any promotion of it. But I was on Maria Bartiromo's show on Sunday, which is a good development because she's ridiculously talented and really nice person. And also she's got that great kind of nice where she's nice, but she's not fake. She is a real go-getter. She's on, I think, 3 hours a day on TV and then an hour on Sundays. That's a lot of television. Knows money. They call her the money honey. That's what they used to call her. Could you do that or that fall out of style because that deemed sexist? Anyway, I'd only been on that show once before, so that was really good, and it felt pretty good. It felt like a good hit. I started with talking about the judge shopping. We talked about how I'm framing it as a judicial coup now. It's tyrannical. I was reflecting on it. Is Trump is being asked to have a unanimous consent from nearly 700 district court judges, or else he cannot lead as the executive of this country, which is not democracy. And all these people who just lectured us on democracy over the last 4 years or so, they now want one lower to medium court judge to be able to block the executive branch. And I did the math on this, and I think many of you have seen some of these stats flying around, but over the last 100 years, half of the injunctions from these lower courts on the executive branch occurred to Donald Trump during his first administration. And we've already got 30 new ones since then. So we're talking 60, 70% of total injunctions against the executive by lower courts over the last 100 years have come against Trump. And I was looking at what parts of the agenda, because maybe I was thinking for the hit, is there a real compelling one that people don't know about? And it's the whole agenda. It's Trump's effort to roll back DEI. It's his effort to deregulate. It's his effort to cut the trans stuff. It's his effort to deport violent criminals who molest children. All of it, the Doge stuff, everything has come under fire from these district court judges. And there's a concept called judge shopping, which we discussed with Peter Schweitzer on the show. I think it was Friday's show, so the most recent show for those of you who get the shows. He talked about this concept. It comes from 1988, where Congress essentially allowed for you did not have to have any requirement or for a connection to the division where you're filing your case. So you could file your case anywhere. And so you could, if you know that there's a soft target in New York or DC, and then we learned this guy Boasberg, who's got a activist daughter who's involved in Democrat politics. He's gotten 4 of the cases for Trump. So he got one of the, he now has the Signal case. Signal came up as well. I'm sort of relieved. Yesterday, I made a big interview week, so I didn't have to spend all week on the Signal story. Just another one of those media stories where the media just treated it like it was so much worse than it was. But also, it wouldn't have been fun to defend it all week, because it does seem sort of impossible that Jeffrey Goldberg, the single worst reporter in the world to be on one of these text chains, was on one of these text chains. So, for me, it does feel like it was probably a sabotage at some point. And it was not explained to me what's going on. And I have friends in the National Security Council. I asked them, and I have not gotten the full picture. And they've even told me that a lot of all the rumors are not right online, but I've not gotten the full picture of what's going on. And it would be nice to know that, because the bottom line is it wasn't all that bad. It is embarrassing and it's not professional, all that stuff, whatever. But it's the mission was successful. All the conversation, the Signal chat was totally good. Everyone looked good. Every single person in the chat looked pretty good. So what they had to say, even though there was some light, polite disagreement about some of the stuff, it was done in a classy way. It was no argument. It was just smart people debating what's going on, and there are no war secrets leaked. We got Jeffrey Goldberg, such a fabulous, the editor of The Atlantic, which is funded by Laurene Powell Jobs. You guys know, if you follow anything I do, who is the Soros like individual who was married to Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow and inherited all this money from Disney and via Pixar and Apple. So she's got an infinite amount of funds. And what she does, she funds the worst organizations on the planet, such as the Atlantic, but also a bunch of activist left-wing outlets. I've written all about the Courier Newsroom, which is literal fake news. Remember, I brought this up on the show a couple of weeks ago. The Courier Newsroom head is this top Democrat activist who is now allegedly in an affair with Chris Murphy, breaking up Chris Murphy's family. So not good people over there. And that's who Laurene Powell Jobs funds. She funds the Atlantic. And it's all about promoting Democrat politics. That's what it's about. And the editor of that to be in that Signal thread, it's very weird to me. And it feels like sabotage. It does. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just an accident. I've certainly had accidents like that, but we never got an answer. So we would have had to spend all week talking about it. So I'm really glad I didn't get to, but that's my official take. It doesn't look good, but ultimately it's the lowest of the low stakes. The stakes couldn't have gotten lower. It did not compromise anything or anyone, and the mission was a success. And I think in the end, the Atlantic looked bad too. So, but that was it. So that came up, as well as all this judicial coup stuff, which is a big deal. It really is something, because Trump is not going to go against these judges because he doesn't feel like it's worth it to him to go against them. In the sense that if he does and he loses the media battle, the media just frame as a constitutional crisis. So Trump is trying to do stuff legit. So we're sort of in this race where we're trying to flood the zone with executive orders faster than the Democrats can put injunctions on them. And it'll take years for all these things to work through the courts. Supreme Court only takes on 100 cases or so a year, so they're going to have to reject a lot of them, and it's all anti-democratic, and we're trying to have these little tyrannies via these district court judges, a lot of them tied to Democrats, and they're all being targeted by Democrat-funded law firms who are intentionally targeting these districts and these courts where they know they're going to get favorable rulings. So that's what's going on, and we got to get clever. We got to get clever here. It's a big deal. So I got to talk about that on Maria's show. You guys can check that out on my socials. It's there. Other stuff in the news. Yeah, Signalgate's failing. Trump maintains 50% approval rating. So there you go. If you guys are picking up this show and you live in Wisconsin or in Matt Gaetz's district in Florida, I would hope you're focused on some of these elections. So Judge Brad Schimmel, who's on Friday's show, if you want to get to know him, he's up for this swing seat in Wisconsin's Supreme Court. If Schimmel wins, it becomes conservative, and we will basically keep the House of Representatives probably as it is. If he loses this race, the House will go liberal, and they will redistrict and almost certainly take away 2 conservative seats. So if they're clever, if they're good at it, very good chance that we end up losing 2 congressional seats based off of this race. So you're hearing Wisconsin Supreme Court. What I want you to hear is 2 congressional races in a narrow majority like we're in now. So that is stakes couldn't be higher. If you're in Wisconsin, please get involved. Please call any family members who can vote if you are hearing this before the polls close on Tuesday. Trump's doing a tele rally with the Florida GOP. Randy Fine is the candidate there, and he is running for Matt Gaetz's seat. So another one we need to hold. Again, I guess our majority is 5 seats now. It's hard to keep up, but it's really tight. So Randy Fine running for Matt Gaetz's seat. This is a huge Republican advantage in this race, but all the polling is suggesting it is going to be very tight, which is it's scary stuff. Schimmel is pulling way behind. He's running it seems like a terrific campaign to me, but it's just, there's a lot of headwinds. The left is fired up. They're organized. You know, they community organize well, and you don't have the benefit of Donald Trump being on the ballot here. So Trump is campaigning for these guys. They need him in there, but you cannot count your chickens. Even though Matt Gaetz's seat was seen as a deep red seat, it is polling very, very tight. So if you're in that district in Florida or know someone who is, you've got to get involved. A big political earthquake to make a abrupt transition that took place overnight is with populist Marine Le Pen banned from running in the French presidential election. Those of you who have been with Breitbart for a long time, Marine Le Pen has been a fixture in European politics and really nationalist politics since I've been in the news business at Breitbart News. All right, so Marine Le Pen is the daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen and comes from a sort of legendary French family. It's always framed up as far right, but it's not really far right. It's people who had warned accurately that Europe was going to dissolve if you have too much widespread immigration. She's actually kind of socialist economically. And my joke is she's a nationalist socialist. So it's but not a national socialist, nationalist socialist. You got to do the slightly different, but you guys get it. But there's no racial component to it. It's not nativist or anything like that. It's that if you believe that the French nationality matters, if you believe the Italian nationality or the Britain, the British, if you think there's any integrity to those nationalities, you can't do what the globalist, multiculturalist European elite have been doing for the last several decades, which is basically you make sure there's no borders, there's no national sovereignty, and you're just outsourcing it to these globalist elite, especially the European Union, but also, the International Criminal Court at The Hague, also the UN, all of these bodies that have not served the people well. They've served the elite, and they've just made the world much more globalist. And they've made it so that national identity doesn't matter. And what's been the benefit? It just seems like there's more crime, there's less national cohesion, and there's not a thriving culture at all. So what is the culture of Europe now? I mean, Europe used to be the centerpiece of global culture, and then now it seems to be no fresh culture comes out of Europe. So how's it going? Is it going well for you? Probably not. So Marine Le Pen made her career as a nationalist and a charismatic person, and she's on the verge of perhaps becoming the president. She's polling ahead of Emmanuel Macron for the 2027 election, or Macron's party. Macron will be termed out. She's run numerous times before. There's always a Le Pen on the ballot. And she might be in jail now. We're learning this. This is pure lawfare. I will, for the sake of time, I won't go through all the details on the show. I will recommend, though, the Breitbart Fight Club. I do 20 minutes on this with Kurt Zindulka from our London bureau. We go through all of this. This is pure lawfare. It is left-wing people who see the vulnerability that the liberal left coalition has in France right now, a golden opportunity for Le Pen to come in. And there's a huge wave of nationalism coming back to Europe. You got J.D. Vance going over there, talking about the importance of nationalism. You see the rise of Trump. You see how well Farage's party is doing in the UK. Romania, another nationalist, just won there. It's one of these things where national unity is coming back. Strong nations make good neighbors. We like when people are part of a nation state relative to one of these globalist superstates. We prefer that. It's a better way for the world to be. It was better when things were like that. So she's really on the verge of being able to pull this out. And now she could be in jail during this time. She could literally it's a 4-year sentence. It'll probably end up being some sort of a house arrest thing, but they're trying to keep her off the ballot. It is lawfare on steroids. And I don't know the French court system enough to know how well it's going to turn out. So you got to tune into my thing with Kurt if you want to see that. But dramatic news. So learning that they really are trying to jail their political opponents. The left has a totalitarian streak a mile long. Refer to my interview with Dr. Kengor that we had last week, where we went through all of these, the Hall of Evil, these communists throughout the world over the last 100 years. All of them have that totalitarian, authoritarian streak. When the left is allowed to operate in their own devices, they want to lock up their political opponents. So be aware. It's not unique to what happened to Trump. This is all around the world. This is what they want to do. It's what they will do if we don't fight back. So really, really interesting stuff. All right, going back domestic for a minute here. Elon Musk claims that 2.1 million non-citizens receive Social Security numbers 2024. That's a lot of non-citizens to get Social Security, right? It's a big number. It's a big number. So he's doing good work, and I hope he's ready for it, because he's getting all these protests, all this vandalism, all these torching of the Teslas, very dangerous stuff. People are getting hurt. People could die. Who knows? Headquarters of a New Mexico Republican Party targeted in a deliberate act of arson. So left-wing totalitarianism. Keep you off the ballot. Do violence. That's what they're all about. Musk has claimed that these Tesla takedown events are paid protests funded by organized Trump haters. This is true. We've been trying to map some of it. I had Jessica Bowman, the journalist who tracks some of the stuff on the show a while back, again. Sorry to keep plugging old shows, but these are important shows. I'm not trying to waste your time here. These shows are supposed to be efficient. So we talked about some of the places where we think the funding's coming from, places like Indivisible, which is a group we've profiled quite a bit at Breitbart. But they like this stuff. It sows chaos, it eats up headline space, and it slows down the agenda, and it's very discouraging, not just to Musk, but for rank and file people who can have lucrative jobs, they have family lives, and going to work on a government salary for 16, 18-hour days for Musk, the ultimate alpha CEO, is not easy work. And they want to make it so that it's not appealing. It's not an appealing proposition to go do this, to try to cut government waste. And the stakes for them are very high because we learned this. Thank God USAID seems to be going away. But a lot of these groups benefit directly from government funds. This is part of the ruse, part of the trick that's been going on. We learned this with the Stacey Abrams getting $2 billion from a group that had $100 in its bank account, that the goal is to fund community organizing on the left with government money. That's how they're doing it. Doge is looking into it. Doge is also looking into the wealth of lawmakers, something that's overdue and very welcome. They're looking at how these lawmakers became rich. That's great. We love that because there's no way, and there's Republicans too. Everyone points out Dan Crenshaw on this, who made a lot of money trading stock. But Nancy Pelosi, the greatest stock trader of all time. How could someone be a Speaker of the House, very successful at that, clearly good at her job? I hate her politics, but was a successful speaker in getting her agenda through. Also happens to be one of the greatest stock traders in history. Is it a coincidence, or perhaps was she operating off of information that she had that others didn't? So we're looking at that. That's good news from Doge, and Musk has got to stay strong because he's doing important stuff under a lot of attack, and I hope he sticks with it. I really do. We get some fun stuff too. A couple fun things. One political one is is Trump really advocating for a third term? I'm interested. I don't like this idea that we just assume everything is the way it is now is the ideal. I just don't like it. I like reappraising some of these precepts. Bannon's out there. He's on a big kick talking about how Trump's going to be use whatever technicality he can to keep running. And maybe he'll run again, maybe again after that. I'm interested from a news perspective. And I brought this up a number of times on the show, those of you who've been with me for a few months, but I'm interested. So more on this in future shows, but I'll know the discussion of Trump for a third term. I'm not dismissing it at all. And it's not just a troll. I'm completely interested in where this could go for the news cycle. And if you don't think the Democrats wouldn't be excited to run Barack Obama again, and we get that matchup we've always wanted, Obama versus Trump, Melania versus Jennifer Aniston, Obama's alleged girlfriend. Come on, guys. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's a big deal. Another fun one, the Snow White continues to bomb. We've been tracking this at Breitbart. Really interesting. One of the producer's sons, Mark Platt, is legendary Hollywood producer, did a lot of theater like Wicked, known for Wicked, first the play and then the movie. He was a producer of Snow White, and some of the Rachel Zegler fans were attacking him online. Mark Platt has a couple of kids, both of whom are actors. One is Ben Platt, who has been in Pitch Perfect and starred in Dear Evan Hansen, which was a big Broadway sensation. And Jonah Platt, who's another one of his kids who's been in sitcoms and has been on Broadway as well. Actually was my classmate in high school. I haven't spoken to him since high school, I don't think. But he went viral over the weekend for just absolutely torching Rachel Zegler for her torpedoing this entire movie, just wasting a massive piece of intellectual property for Disney with their own personal politics. So you'll have to go to Breitbart.com to read the full quote, but it's pretty devastating. And it's just brought up this whole new news cycle of people dunking on Rachel Zegler and Snow White, which has just been a blast. Comedian Tim Dillon says that someone has to put her in a cage. And it's such an interesting point now, is that it used to be that these Hollywood stars were so good at marketing. And now they're all cringe-inducing as you see them marketing, and you feel like you're just getting oversold. And when you don't like them, and you're just better off sometimes just not pitching all the time. So many of our best actors, so many of our best actresses, they don't necessarily whore themselves out to the press all the time. Sometimes they do nothing. They don't do any press. It's how often you see interviews with our best directors. You don't see them all the time. Sometimes it's better to let the art speak for itself. And especially when you have whatever the opposite of charisma, when you're loathsome, like the extraterrestrial Rachel Zegler, she should just go away. And she still keeps popping up on social media. That's how young people are, though. It's like breathing. Social media for them is like breathing. So they can't help but be on it and posting stuff. And sometimes the stuff they're posting is really hurting. So I thought that was a great line by Tim Dillon, that she needs to be in a cage, because it would suit her and the people who will pay her lots of money if she can rehabilitate her career, if she stops talking. But she won't. And that's good for us. It's great for content at Breitbart News. So in that sense, I disagree with Tim Dillon. All right. I want to get into it with Jon Kahn, but I will tell you before we do this that I did as I always do over the weekend. I did have my Solaire grill night, the hot fast grill for everyday grilling. My friends over there are amazing, good people, made in America, stainless steel products, highest quality. And the hot fast grill, I did my favorite thing that I can do as a man in my late 30s with a bunch of children. I guess it wasn't Friday because I can't have meat on Friday. Was it Thursday that I did it? It must have been Thursday. So I got the tri-tip. I got the prime tri-tip, which is just, I don't even understand it anymore. It's like, it was a prime thing and it was, like 2.5 pounds and it was $25. Like just like, I don't understand the math on this. It's just the most luxurious meat you could have. And I'm feeding the people at the table, $4 a piece. It's just crazy, crazy stuff. And I set it up on the smoker, slow cooked it until it came to temperature, gave it a good long rest, and I fired up that Solaire infrared grill to 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes, and I seared that thing off. I'm gonna have to start posting photos because it's just unbelievable because you get that hot, juicy interior, but you get that perfect crispy exterior. You guys know I love it. You don't even have to sell me on this. I'm glad they're sponsors because I'd probably be selling them anyway for free. So don't tell them that though. But they have a demo rental program as well. Try before you buy. So you grill all the foods your family likes. Besthotgrill.com. It's besthotgrill.com. Get the try before you buy, but you guys are going to like it. It makes chicken, steak, veggies, burgers, but in particular, if you got the time to get the smoker and do the low and slow, and then you sear it off for that perfect crust, that is absolutely how I have fun. If you want to know, not being all tongue in cheek, that is the most fun thing for me at this phase of my life. All right, let's get into it with Jon Kahn. I'm Alex Marlow. You guys know that. It's stupid. Misty, cut that stupid line that I reintroduced myself to my own show. All right, you can leave it if it's funny. Whatever. It's like I've got to be able to embarrass myself. Can do a podcast. You keep it however you like it, Misty. I trust you because I bet it was funny. Anyway, this is gonna be great. You guys are gonna love this interview. Jon Kahn's an amazing guy. Let's check it out. Are you tired of destructive content flooding your screens? I was too, which is why I joined the Angel Guild community. I wanted content that inspires and uplifts and doesn't drag us down. And with Angel Guild, I can vote on upcoming films that support and reflect my values. I get early access to inspiring content, and most importantly, I'm no longer beholden to Hollywood's entertainment industry and their agendas. Angel Studio is leading the charge, creating high-quality, faith-filled films like Sound of Freedom, Cabrini, and Homestead. These movies are powerful, and they're must-sees if you haven't already seen them. And if you want to make a real difference, where we put our dollars shapes the future of entertainment. So let's support the content that amplifies light, protects our children from harmful influences. So join me in making a difference today by visiting angel.com/Marlow. That's angel.com/Marlow and join the Angel Guild now. All right, my friend Jon Kahn is on the show today. He's our COO of Breitbart, but I think more interesting, he's our Minister of Culture, which is a title that originated with Andrew Breitbart. He's been here a long time, and first part-time. I used to edit a column he would write for us at Breitbart News called My Weekly Date with a Liberal, which were always hilarious and always a highlight when he'd write those, and it turned into a job in the front office at Breitbart News. And Jon's been through a lot. You guys are familiar with his work with his song Fighter, which was #1 song on iTunes, was played at Trump rallies, and was sort of integral to the campaign. I think it was a really anthem for a lot of people, including all of us at the Breitbart staff and beyond. And he's out with a new single, Fingerprints. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Jon, first of all, welcome to the Alex Marlow Show. This is overdue, but you got to find the right moment to do it. Now is the right moment. Of course, I've talked about your house, you losing your house in the Palisades fire, but I want to start, I think, a little bit with just how you went from being one of the most interesting people I've ever met, to be honest with you. Not to flatter you, but it's just true. And you end up at Breitbart helping us run our business. It's an amazing arc. Take me a little bit. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute version, but
right.
From being a champion tennis player at Stanford to having a immediate success in Hollywood, which no one has immediate success in Hollywood unless you're a hot chick, and then being a songwriter, and then also working at Breitbart. It's a wild life. I mean, you have to take a step back and reflect on it sometimes. I think that what a ride.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, I have to say. I mean, it started, I was in film and music after college, and, not to beat a dead horse, but there's that bias toward conservatives in the entertainment industry. And I got invited to what was an FOA meeting, which was that kind of a conservative conservative speakeasy where people just wanted some fellowship without, losing work. And I went to my first luncheon, and Gary Sinise was there, and he he opened up the meeting, and it was like just before the Obama's first election. And it was like a big square table, like 50 people. And I was the last one. And they were like, all right, we're all going to have a chance to talk. And, if I'm being frank, everybody was just whining. And so,
Oh, God, I love that you said that. I went to so many of these things. I had the same thought.
I was like, and all I could do was count the people in front of me until it got to me. And I'm like, this is going to be 2 hours of whining until it gets to me. And it finally, it came around to me, and I made a joke and made everybody laugh. I don't remember what it was that I said, but there was a guy standing in the corner with a laptop and a John McCain hat. And he came over to me. He goes, "Hi, I'm Andrew Breitbart. I'm starting a new site called Big Hollywood. I want you to write for it." And that was the initial meeting with Andrew.
Wow.
And he said, and I said, "Well, I can't write under my real name." And he says, "That's okay. You can use pseudonyms. We get it." And he goes, "What do you want to write?" I said, "Well, something funny. I definitely think we need something funny on our side." He goes, "For sure." He goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "What if I date liberal women on purpose?" And,
so good.
And write about it. He goes, "Oh, you have to do it." And so, so I wrote, as you said, you edited those first few pieces. I only wrote about 5 of them, but I think they were so outside the box because everybody was kind of not used to having a sense of humor on our side. And Andrew would tweet them and basically give permission for people to laugh at it.
Yeah.
And on one of those dates, I met a girl that was foaming at the mouth and spitting and all sorts of stuff as soon as she found out I was conservative. And I just asked her a simple question. I go, "Don't you love this country?" And she says, "No, I don't." And I called Andrew on the way home. I said, "They don't like the country."
Wow.
And he goes, "Yes, like finally you're there. Finally you understand it." And shortly thereafter that, I was thinking about it, and I wrote a song called American Heart.
Yes.
And that's what triggered that song, which then put me on the Tea Party circuit with Andrew. And we went, for a year, we went to all the tea parties, and I would sing wearing a hat and sunglasses. And then ultimately we became close friends. And when he passed away, I spoke to Larry, our CEO, and Steve and you guys, and they said, "Well, why don't you join the company?" So that's how I got started here.
The amazing story. There's so much in there I want to isolate. It's first of all, they were funny for a normal person, but I just love that some of this sort of highbrow, subtle humor that you'd have in it, like how we would call it my weekly date with a liberal, and we get one every 5 months. Like it was this, like I love that. That just hits my funny bone so much. And the fact that your reflection on that they don't love the country, I mean, this has been very animating to me, and it's something that I feel like only recently has become a mainstream viewpoint. And John, you're familiar with how I try to communicate as much as anyone is. I don't want us to sound insane, our movement. I want our movement to sound very normal because we are normal. And the vast majority of people in this movement are not the people on Twitter who are suggesting that, Robert Kennedy Jr. is being blackmailed by the Jews right now. Like, that's not most of our movement. I mean, most of our movement are normal people who just think a border is good and thinks taxes should be low and, thinks we're too many wars, all that stuff. And it's want our country respected. And and they don't respect our country. And that's deeply offensive to me. And I think our side has been reluctant to come around to that point, but you got there fairly quick because someone literally said to you, "I don't dig it. I don't dig this place."
And it's still happening, if you can believe it, despite the fact that, the other side's policies, you can see the destruction in every major city that they run. I'm experiencing that personally, being in LA and seeing what the policies were that led up to these fires and the policies that are happening that are preventing people from understanding how to move forward. But not to get into my personal life too much, but I met a girl recently in the wake of the fires, and she was so good to me. I met her through friends, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And it's not easy to date in LA. And she was very seemingly open-minded. She was an RFK fan. And as I got to know her, the last time I hung out with her, she was talking about how behind America is and started in bad-mouthing the country. And I felt like I was right back in that place. And the ironic thing is she's from Australia. I hesitated because I thought, is she ever going to see this? Oh, man. All right. Well, it is what it is now. Okay. Not so much for that potential. Anyway. But
no, you know what? You'll turn it into a
I
joke if she checks this out. She'll find it. She'll think it's funny.
Yeah.
No, but it's an interesting. It's again. But that whole thing is that why are you, if you're here as a guest and you're like judging us, it's just like people coming into your house and then whining about whatever you serve them to eat or like,
exactly.
what color your couch is.
You live here? This is weird.
Like, say, what? Like, why? Just be quiet. Enjoy yourself.
It's really,
exactly.
I'll say, and it's very offensive when, what we do at Breitbart and all the stuff that we've been through to fight for what we believe in, and to hear somebody badmouth it, it still has the same impact as it did back then. It's like, except it's worse now because there's much more evidence, that the other policies don't work. And that the rejection of the DEI and the woke stuff, it's very clear that the culture is shifting. And to hear people still hanging on to that America is bad is just kind of bewildering to me at this point.
So I got to get your house. So you lose your house in the Palisades fire, which is, it doesn't, this, and I'm sorry to put you through this, but
okay.
We have to, is I don't really get it. Like I want to get it. I want to sympathize. I think about it every day across my mind, John. I think about you, and so does everyone else in your life. I can guarantee that. But we still don't know. The devastation it's one of those things. It must be like losing a child or something where you're just like, you don't really know. It's not a good club to be in. Could you just talk to us a little bit about what it's like?
Well, it's interesting, being that we're in the news business. I mean, we're so used to looking at it through our lens, which is the story is over there.
The macro
over there, right? Mm-hmm. And to be part of the story is a very unique feeling. And, I grew up in the Palisades. I went to high school there. I was in my home for 30 years. And it's just impossible to put words to, because it's the level, even if you see the aerial photos, you can't really fathom it until you drive through and you realize that the entire town is gone and how many lives are shattered. And, I was with a bunch of people from town. There was an event over the weekend, and like the level of despair is, I feel like I'm doing pretty well. And I think we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about this. But, it's very sad because, it's only been 3 months, and the first couple months I was still in shock. But, a house that I love so much, it just slowly fades away, and you start to accept it, and it starts to feel like a memory. So like, I was one of the first people to get my lot cleared. And I think one of the first 20 houses to get the debris cleared. And then I went to see it, and it's just dirt. And I thought I would see grow, like I thought I would see the potential. I thought I would see something new, ready to happen. And it messed me up because I thought, at least when the debris was there, I could say, there's my stuff. It's all,
oh my gosh,
it's all burned, but that's my stuff. And there's half of my Peloton and a quarter of my guitar stand and a piece of a coffee cup. And you go, look, that's my stuff. There's my washing machine, but when you see the dirt, it's like you never existed there. And it's very difficult to put words, to really explain what it feels like. But, I think that there's so much pain in the town, and I think our colleague Joel Pollack and I are doing whatever we can to keep the story alive, because we know how fast the news cycle moves. And Joel is just doing yeoman's work, trying to uncover every story that's happening and what people are going through.
And I'll talk to you about some of the stories after we play the song here coming up. But it's something that it just must feel. I can't relate to how intense it must feel to lose your home, though, because of the displacement, the comfort level, the being able to have a sanctuary where you can retreat to, and to not be able to have that at all. Oh, what was that like? Because it feels like, I bet you there's moments where you can pump yourself up and you can feel optimistic and think that, you know what, I survived, everything's going to be okay. I'm a fighter, as the song says, and I'm going to go and this next chapter is going to be great. But then you got to go back to your dad's couch. And that's where I mean, that must be a weird sensation.
Well, it is weird because a home is more than just a place where you put your stuff. Yes. It's a personal expression of everything that it's an expression of yourself. I mean, they always say when you dream about a home, when you have a dream about a home, whether it's your home in actuality or if it's another home, it's representative of you're dreaming about yourself and how you feel about yourself. And over 30 years, it's an expression of who you are, and that's gone. And you have to, it's not, you're not gone, but you have to rebuild in another place. It's a very, for me, I think everybody's got to look at it through their own lens as to why something like this could have happened. It's hard to explain. I mean, for me personally, I have been, as you know, I write a lot of songs and I go to Nashville quite a bit. And I've always thought about moving there. Everybody's always trying to convince me to move there. And I've wanted to. And frankly, I was having a hard time cutting the cord. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well now I'm going to go try it. And I'm leaving LA in a few weeks. I'm going to rent in Nashville for 6 months. And now I have that opportunity to, at least, doesn't mean I'm not going to rebuild, but at least I have the opportunity to try something that maybe I was a little bit afraid to do.
That's amazing, and it's very inspiring. And I'll tell you, I've never made a big move in my life that I regretted, and I've always needed a push. Though I've always needed some. I'm not great personally, and it's just good to remind yourself of sometimes maybe God or the universe, if you're feeling in an atheistic mood, which I am not, I will say God. Sometimes it gives you a sign to try something new. Before we get into the song, I got a comment on you're a pro at reinventing yourself, and this is something that I think about a lot. Is that you were a star tennis player, national champion at Stanford. You did one of the coolest things ever, which is you wrote Tales from the Crypt scripts, which is on my bucket list. I'm not going to get that opportunity though. You actually have done that. And you got direct in Hollywood, right in Hollywood. And you've been an integral part of Breitbart for over a decade. And then you also are now having success as a songwriter. What gives you the sort of self-belief or the feeling that I can try something totally different and succeed at it? Because that's something that a lot of people, even confident people, are kind of fearful of changing gears like that.
It's interesting. I don't really think about it too much. Like it's not an active, hey, I'm going to go reinvent myself. I've just kind of fallen into things like, I didn't learn how to play music as a child. I picked up a guitar at 25, taught myself how to play, bought a book, it showed me where to put my fingers, and kind of had a knack for figuring it out and writing songs and singing a bit. And, there's this thing in Hollywood where, like, there were times it's very frustrating. To be an artist is frustrating because it's very subjective. There's no right or wrong to whether you get a good script or a good song or you get the opportunity to do it. But, I got a lot of positive reinforcement. In Hollywood, there's an expression that you can die from encouragement. And I went through that quite a bit because every time, it's such an up and down ride being an artist, that every time I wanted to get out of something and go, you know what, I'm just going to have a 9-to-5 job and try to have a steady life, something amazing would happen. I'd get an opopportunity. I felt like the Godfather, that keep pulling me back in. And, I realized, it's funny. I guess I'll tell this story. I haven't think I've ever told it, but I had a moment when I was about 35 that really made me look at my life differently. I had agents for film. I had some success in music, and I was about 35 and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. Like I was like, I need a change. I don't like my agents. I don't like people representing me. I'm going to go get into meetings. I'm going to make these meetings myself. I'm going to meet everybody I can. I'm going to be super proactive. And, I got myself into a room with a woman who puts all the songs in for Fox TV shows. And as a songwriter, there's thousands and thousands of songwriters in LA. You don't get into rooms like this. And I was able to, through some relationships, get in the room. And it was a British woman. She was about 50 years old. And when you're 35, that seems very matriarchal. Now I'm like, man. Anyway, so so she seemed and she had a British accent. And she was very, very maternal. And she said, so tell me your story. And at that time I was so down, and so unsure of what I was going to do. And I'm telling her the story kind of like what you laid out. I went to Stanford. I was a national championship tennis player. I wrote a Tales from the Crypt. I went to film school. I directed a movie. I taught myself how to play music. And then I opened for Creed at Staples Center. And I'm telling her this story. And inside, I'm dying. I'm going, you're such a loser, John. Like, what? You don't know what you're going to do. How are you in a meeting where you have to talk about what you've done? And when I got done, she leaned back, kind of confused, and she looked at me and she said, what an amazing life. And that one line changed the entire course of how I look at my life, because things didn't go, they never go exactly how you think they're going to go. But at the same time, I started looking at my life as kind of the way you laid it out, like a crazy story with these chapters. I go here, I go here.
Yes.
I was at Staples Center, but now I'm in the White House, for meetings. Like, it's so crazy that I'm able to accept the good and the bad in a way that's, in the fire is another chapter in this crazy story. And I know that a year and a half from now, I'm going to look back and go, I get it. And this for a reason.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with the Alex Marlow Show audience. I feel very privileged. Amazing story. And I think a lot of us have a relatable story. I think a lot of us, if we had that same opportunity, just talk it out. Everyone should do that as an exercise when you're 35. Just talk through your stuff. And if your answer to yourself is, I've had an amazing life, just be a little more grateful. And if your answer to yourself is, man, I've been on the couch a lot, then maybe you need to reframe some stuff.
Right, that's right.
But I want to get in the song. So Fingerprints, this was written before the fires, and I know you wanted to release it, and you felt like the timing wasn't right because of the election, things like that. I want to play it. Is there anything you want in people's head before I roll it?
Well, I wrote it. I keep writing these songs that predate events that are not particularly great events that end up adding additional dimensions to the song. For example,
like Fighter, of course.
Like Fighter, I wrote prior to the assassination attempt on Trump's life. This song I wrote at a time where I was exploring faith for the first time in my life, going to church, having amazing conversations with people, like almost like going to school.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this song. I hesitated to release it because I was so new to faith, and it felt like such a sacred thing that, is it my place to release a song like this when I'm just exploring it and asking questions? And then after that, I went through a series of things that, I lost, or I broke up with a girlfriend. I lost my mom. My dad fell and needed major surgery. And then I lost my home, all after this song. And so I keep writing these songs that, like I said, predate events that then give them additional meaning. And I think my next one's going to be about winning the lottery and finding my.
Yeah, John. Some people have crystal ball. You got a crystal guitar.
Yeah, it's. I got to start rethinking my next songs. But so I thought, once I got myself together after the fires, I thought, you know what, this is a good time to release this song.
Get it out there.
It's, my faith hasn't wavered despite this grief, and it's helped me through this whole process in ways I can't even explain.
Beautiful. All right, well, let's play it. This is Fingerprints, singer-songwriter Jon Kahn, and then we'll get a little more thoughts on it afterwards. Misty, make sure that I'm not on the screen while this is happening. I'm gonna turn off my camera just in case, just to make sure. But here it goes.
When I was 10, laid on the bed and cried. No one could hear me. No one could hear me. Thought there's gotta be a reason for my life. But who'd believe me? Who'd believe me? I don't wanna be someone who dies with everything I am locked up inside. Wondered if anything was really mine. I didn't know there was more I could lose. Up in the sky, I could only see blue. what you wanted, what you wanted. How could pain be part of any plan that's always haunted, that's always haunted me? And I didn't know there was more that I could lose. Up in the sky, I could only see blue. But if my eyes were really open, I would have found the clues. I would have heard you say there's nothing you can't do. I got my fingerprints on you. And now that little boy, he cries for all the years and years of all that he denied. He ain't looking for a reason, 'cause he knows now that believing ain't a lie. When it gets dark and it's so hard to breathe, you'll be right there, and I know you won't leave. It took a long, long time to get here. Lord, I know now what I need, 'cause even in the darkness I can see. Even in the darkness I can see. You got your fingerprints on me. You got your fingerprints on me.
John, your songs always give me chills. That was a really it's such a great, I don't know. I feel like you got something special. I just feel like you really tap into something. Obviously the song's about a relationship with God, a developing relationship with it. Talk about the title and the main lyric. I got my fingerprints on you. That's just, it's such a great lyric. It's just so there's something lightly mysterious about it also, which I really dig. Tell me about it.
So when I started going down this journey, like I said before, I just started having conversations with people as I wanted to understand. Like, I was such a rookie, or still am a rookie at this, that, I would talk about in the faith world. And I was such a rookie that, I'd call people and they go, "What's the matter?" I'm like, I forgot to pray last night. And they would say, John, you realize you can pray during the day. And I was like, I mean, that's how new, I was like, oh, I always thought you could only pray at night. And so I was actually having a conversation. So one of our colleagues, I've had many conversations about faith with him, and I was telling him about all these interesting things that have been happening to me since I started going down this road. People that came back into my life that were also on this journey, people I'd meet randomly, and folks that were being generous and kind and all these things. And he looked at me and he goes, "You don't even realize it, but God's got his fingerprints all over you." And you've interviewed Jeffrey Steele, who's a Hall of Fame songwriter,
of course,
a good friend of mine. And he always told me that you have to listen to conversations that you're part of, or you hear other people talking, and you will get so many ideas for songs just by the way people phrase things. And when our colleague said that, I went, "That's the name of the song," and it kind of flowed out very, very easily after that.
There's a humble nature to it, which I really like, because we're in this age where you see all this. There's this big, online guru culture where everyone acts like they've got all these answers, and you this different approach where you're saying, "I'm finding answers," and you're sharing that with an audience. Versus, it feels like so much of our content. I was obsessed last week, as was the whole world, with this guy who thinks that the key to having a meaningful life is rubbing a banana peel on your face, and like this is the exact opposite of that. The key to having a meaningful life is discovering who you are, even as and and through God and in letting yourself have that developing relationship, even as a middle-aged person, that's bravery to me. It's not brave to pour a bottle of water in your face.
Right. Well, I think it's, just growing as a person is really the goal. And that might look different to different people. For me, it's about getting smarter. It's about finding peace. It's about being more generous, more kind. And this journey, this faith journey that I'm on has really kind of not that I wasn't a bad person before, but it really, it gets you thinking about how you respond to things. Like the first time I went to church, I was a little bit lost. I had lost my mom, and I had broken up with somebody, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And I don't belong here. I've never been here. It's completely unfamiliar. And I'm looking at all these people hugging and smiling, on a Sunday morning in Santa Monica, and there's so much warmth. And I go out to the parking lot, and I'm boxed in, and I can't get out. And I default right back to, I can't even say the words. Like, I can't believe it. I'm who would do this? That normal LA tense. I've got, impatience, this, and I stopped and I said, really, John, this is what you just took from that?
Yes.
And I'm like, you're going to get home. You're going to get you will ultimately get out of this parking spot. And it was, it's a silly story, but it was like a sort of a game-changing moment. And so, because you're like, wait a minute, this is not important. And how you're reacting to it is important, because it's not the right way to react. And road rage is always seemingly an example of what people use when they're talking about how they're not acting the way they want.
Right.
Right. And so I love the notion of, holding myself to a higher standard. And it's just kind of gives you, like, somebody told me once that the goal of life is not happiness, it's peace. And that, because happiness is, it's situational. I can get a phone call and be happy, but peace comes from being able to face any situation, good or bad, and know that things are going to be okay. And that to me is a pretty worthy goal.
It's funny because I was thinking, I like this. I hadn't thought of it that way, because I was thinking about how I had a good moment over the weekend where I was feeling very positive and upbeat, and it was very joyful, but I knew it was fleeting. And then, but I also had a moment where one of my children was being just absolutely impossible, and I had no rage whatsoever. And I felt more pleased with myself when the child was being a complete monster, and I was totally okay. Like, my blood pressure wasn't going up. I didn't feel like yelling at anyone. I could handle it. And that's almost better. I felt more fully realized at that moment. You've got a lot of support for the song. Creed Scott Stapp has, I think, the biggest endorsement. He says, I feel the divine in this song. I feel God. That's the greatest compliment I could ever give anyone. And I believe that we as songwriters could ever get. I think that's totally right in the money. What's the call to action here? What can the audience do if they're interested, if they want to support you, if they want to support your music?
Well, I'd love for the song just to be shared. If you want to download it, that's great. iTunes, but it's on all the streamers. But the messages I've gotten, the emails, the comments I see on X, folks saying, I lost my daughter 3 weeks ago and I needed this song today.
Wow.
To me, there's lots of those messages. And to me, that's more important than charting on the charts or whatever. So it's just really kind of sharing with anybody who might, be inspired or it might help them.
Amazing. John, I want to have you back on talk about your fire experience, but I cannot. I've got fire questions for you that I've written out, because you've got a harrowing experience actually dealing with the insurance companies and the government, and you've got a lot of insight on that. And we got to come back and do that at a different time. But I feel like it would totally cheapen the song if I make you talk about State Farm insurance.
Yeah, let's talk about FEMA real quick. Yeah, no,
I think I'm going to tactfully not bring that up in this interview, but that gives us an excuse to do this one more time. But it's terrific work. It's something Andrew would be proud of, which is probably the highest compliment I could give, is that he didn't want people just to comment on the culture. He wanted us to be the culture. And part of that is actually, you got to put yourself out there. Oh, I will say the video is super cool. Where'd you do the video?
So the video I did kind of on the cheap. I mean, it was just one guy. And it was also one of those divine things where I reached out to somebody in Nashville who's I wanted to do it in Nashville. I knew I wanted to do it in black and white. And I texted somebody I didn't really know, and he said, you know what, I can't help you, but I know a guy who's very much a capable cameraman, and he put me in touch with him, and he was a believer, and he was like, he heard the song, and he goes, let's do it. So he and I just kind of went out with one makeup artist to make me look a little prettier, and we just kind of found some locations in Nashville, and kind of, it was a run and gun operation, and we put it together.
It just feels like one of those things where just the location itself the vibe is good. You get the cool jacket and the cool hat, but you got to have that. I mean, you can't go to Nashville and not get the cool jacket. Right? Yeah.
That's all part of it.
You can't go to Nashville without the cool jacket and the cool hat. Come on.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where like everyone's got a movie they can think of where they just, the location is so good. It just makes the whole, you're going to like it just from that.
Right. I mean, I love that jacket, and it burned up. So I don't.
No way.
Yeah. So
can you get a new one? Or is it all broken in?
No, that's
another one where you're almost prescient again because you wrote a song about your favorite boots. So you just should swap it out for the jacket.
You know what? So I had 13 pairs of Redwing boots that I collected over 30 years, and they all burned. And my buddy Jeffrey Steele got me my first pair and sent me a photograph of them. And he said, for the fighter. And of course I got tears in my eyes. And then Redwing sent me another pair. So I got 2 pairs. And I'm rebuilding a very important boot collection.
Did you know that Redwings have a huge cult following in Nashville before you started getting into them?
Well, I got into them because every time I introduced the song Boots in LA, I was like, I grew up in the mean streets of the Palisades. And it was just kind of a thing in the music, like in the music world here in LA, people were wearing Redwing boots. I didn't know what they were. And I just kind of got hooked on them. And I started finding cool pairs. Every time I would travel, I'd duck into the Redwing store and see if they were offering boots that they didn't have in LA. But so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they have a cult following. I mean, most people wear cowboy boots in Nashville, but it's definitely a thing.
No, it's like it shows up in the songs. I mean, there's just like
is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think like Morgan Wallen sings about his Redwings and stuff. Like it's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. So John, anyway, I'm getting far afield. The song Fingerprints, anything John writes is great. American Heart, which you guys have all heard if you listen to Breitbart News Daily ever, and of course Fighter, which everyone heard, #1 song during the election. So get it on download on iTunes and then share it with someone if it means something to you. Just say you guys check this out because we want to boost this thing for a lot of reasons. And best of luck in Nashville, John. We'll do this again, talk about the fire when the time's right. But can't thank you enough for being here.
Alex, thanks for having me. Congrats on the new show. And, now we'll hang up and get back to work at Breitbart.
Yeah, it's good. Let's go type on the computer all day, buddy.
All right,
see you online.
Okay,
all right. That's today's show. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience. Talk to you tomorrow.